Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. Hello, this is David Gouthro with Discover Fresh Perspectives, coming to you live. And today, once again, my guest is, me. I'm talking to myself again. So what I thought I'd do is just offer a phrase that, might help you feel more in control of virtually everything that happens in your life. Now, that's a rather grand statement, but let me just share with you what the phrase is. Then you can decide if it might have value for you. So the phrase is simply this: I can work with that, or I can work with that, or I can work with that. But the main phrase is, I can work with that. So how do I use this? Why does it work? So I use this anytime something happens to me that's unexpected, unanticipated, regardless of I might subsequently perceive it as good or bad. The first thing I want to say in my head is, I can work with that. What does this do? Well, first of all, that helps avoid the inevitable amygdala hijack, where a little part of your brain hears something and can go into a little bit of panic mode and get you responding in a way that you subsequently wish you had not responded in that way. Wish you hadn't said or done something. So this is a way that I can feel more in control of how I respond to the events that occur in my life. So it's important that this be automatic. So let's take a couple of examples. On occasion, my wife and I have different memories of what happened on a particular event. So she'll be describing it, and there's something that she says that I know that's just not the way that it happened. But before I respond, I first tell myself, I can work with that. And then it puts me in a place of asking, okay, how can I work with that? So in some cases, it means it's absolutely not that critical to correct her. It's not going to put more capital in the relationship bank. Just be quiet and live with it. It really doesn't matter, right? So then I could choose just to let it go. Or another example, I was working with a client the other day, and we'd spent many meetings deciding on what the agenda was going to be for a particular meeting. And in the midst of that meeting, he decided that he wanted to do something differently. Now, in the past, in my less mature past, I might have said, at least to myself, oh no, oh my God, we spent all this time getting rid of this. Why are you changing it? Now, when something like this happens, and it did just a couple of weeks ago, I told myself, I can work with that. And the truth is, I can work with that. It's not whether I want to, it's not whether I like to, it's not whether I'm happy about what happened, but it puts me in a position of personal efficacy. I don't make myself a victim of my thoughts and what happened. So as soon as I tell myself I can work with that, I go into the how space. How can I work with that? I'll give you a few more examples. A friend of mine was just diagnosed with a fairly major health challenge. And although at the moment, there's a little bit, actually quite a bit of grieving and feeling badly and all those kinds of things, she came around to the point where she could say, you know what, I can work with that. Do I wish I had this particular malady? Of course not. Would I like it to go away? Of course. But the truth is, I can work with it. I just need to figure out how. A couple more examples. Caught in traffic. I can work with that. So instead of whining and complaining and being miserable, letting my stress build up and making me pretty much unable to do whatever I need to do when I get to where I'm going, I could say, okay, there's a podcast I'd like to listen to. It's short enough. Maybe it's an opportunity to call hands-free safely to someone while I'm stuck in traffic and make good use of the time. Am I happy that I'm stuck in traffic? No. But can I make something better of it than I would otherwise if I just react and start complaining and whining? Absolutely. So just try saying this to yourself. I can work with that. I can work with that. So flat tire, I can work with that. I'm a professional speaker. My PowerPoint didn't work. Well, you know what? I can work with that. Clients walked out in the middle of the meeting. I can work with that. Who knows what's going on with them? I can assume that I'm doing a terrible job and that's why they walked out, but maybe they got a call from one of their kids who's having a challenge at school or something like that. So it doesn't change the facts of the situation, but it puts me in a much better position to do something with it. So I can work with that, or if you're in the midst of something, I can work with this. And I'll just give you one more fairly trivial example. I had to cut out some blackberry bushes, to whom I often give more blood than Canadian Blood Services. And as I looked at that, my first thought was, I can work with that. Do I want to be cutting them down? Do I want to get scarred for life? Absolutely not. But I can work with that. And then once I was in the midst of all these blackberries, not having a particularly good time, I just switched my thinking to, I can work with this. I can work with this. So I put on some music, I trimmed away, and got a lot more done than I would have otherwise, because I would have bailed out because I wasn't having a good time. So this I leave with you, the phrase, I can work with that, or I can work with this. Try it out. Don't imagine that it'll work or won't work. Try it out. I can work with that. I can work with this. And so that's it for me from Discover Fresh Perspectives. One of the ways to discover fresh perspectives is to tell yourself, I can work with that. Subscribe now, because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.